IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we discuss the story of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Before we get on with today's episode, a quick shout out to some of you who took time to write to us. A big thank you to Ram, Rajesh, Shiv Kumar, and Jai Shankar. Thank you guys. As for today's episode, we speak with Edwina D'Souza, a travel writer and a blogger who blogs under the handle Wannabe Maven. Let's buckle up and get ready for a trip of a lifetime.
So, with that introduction, I'd love to welcome Edwina D'Souza, the eyes and the mind behind the blog wannabemaven.com. Edwina, thank you so much for being a part of the Musafir Stories and welcome.
Thanks a lot, Saif. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I think I first heard Musafir stories on Elita. Elita was one of the bloggers who came on Musafir Stories. She spoke about Manipur, and that's when I got to know about your blog, and I was like, oh wow, maybe someday I'll also be speaking on this one. And yeah,
really glad to have you, Edwina, and we'll talk a little bit more about you and your adventures, but the introduction I gave about you is pretty short and sweet, so why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about you and your blog?
Sure. So basically I have this blog, a travel blog called wannabemaven.com. It's a separate story how I started the blog, but yeah, I had a lot of unused material around my travel, around the travels I was doing, and that's when I thought, okay, let's just put it out there for people to read, and maybe it might help them and encourage them to travel as well. That's how it all germinated, the seed for traveling and stuff. Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. And yeah, something that caught my eye and my attention about Edwina's travels was her really, how do I put this, very, very quirky trip that she did on an auto rickshaw, on a tuk-tuk, around Sri Lanka, all by herself, I think, for most of the journey at least. So that really caught my attention, and when I went digging, I literally stumbled upon a treasure trove of travel stories. Yeah, we'll definitely save that for another day. But for today, Edwina, why don't you tell us where you're taking us and the listeners to?
Obviously, Sri Lanka was an epic trip, but it only has to get better, right? So today I'm going to take you all to a region that is not much on the tourist circuit. In fact, there's a lot of misconceived notions about this state. It's Chattisgarh's Bastar region. I was there in February this year. I was backpacking there for a week in Chattisgarh. So I'm going to take you all on a tour of Bastar.
Wonderful. I think that's really quite the introduction. And you couldn't have said it better that a lot of preconceived notions people have about this. And to address the elephant in the room, right? It's also because the region has been the epicenter of what is known as the naxalite movement in India that has affected parts of not just Chattisgarh but also places like Andhra, Telangana, a little bit of Jharkhand, Odisha, etc. It's an armed struggle, an armed movement that has been going on for a few decades now, and there is this fear that it's not very safe, right? That's the first concern that comes to mind for somebody considering travel to Bastar. But before we kind of jump into your experience there at a high level on the onset, how many of those myths were true or false?
I would say almost it's a pretty safe place to go. There's been some issues with the Bastar region, and we've read about it enough in the media. But I think when I went there, it was a total different picture. And I'll be very honest, when I went there, I was scared. I had a lot of notions in my head, how's it going to be, and is it going to be safe? And obviously I was traveling alone and stuff. But when I stepped in there, it was totally fine. One thing that is really important is that although even if you're traveling alone, it's advised that you take a a local guide or a local person and go with you. I'll discuss that more in detail later. But in terms of safety, it's pretty much safe. And yes, there is some pockets of Bastar where there is the naxal activities that go on, but they are far, far away in the forests, and they are demarcated, and you can't really go close to those areas also because there's enough control, by the government and the police and stuff. So, but overall, it's totally fine to travel inside Bastar region.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful to hear because that's why I think hearing it from the horse's mouth, like they say, right, from somebody who has gone there, hearing it from them, I think it definitely does assure a lot of people. And now for somebody, some of us who might be living under a rock and not very familiar with where this is, can you please tell us how one should get to or where Bastar is?
Okay, so since I'm based out of Bombay, for me the convenient and easiest option was to fly in from Mumbai directly to Raipur. There are trains as well, but it was just a matter of choosing time, saving time over money, I would say. So I directly flew down from Bombay into Raipur, which is the biggest city and it has the airport. But then, of course, if there are people from other parts of India, say for example, Andhra Pradesh is quite close by. So if you're living in Vizag, you can just take the train, or a lot of people who are in Vizag typically can just take the train from Vizag to Jagdalpur, and it's like hardly 3-4 hours by train. So a lot of people do that actually. They just go over a weekend from Vizag into Bastar region, and then they come back. Then of course there's Orissa is a neighbor, so a lot of people from Orissa, a lot of tourists from Orissa who are doing a tribal circuit, they also while Orissa has a very rich tribal culture, so a lot of people on the tribal route also hop into Chattisgarh to check out the tribal culture in Chattisgarh. Yeah, so these are some of the options you can do. So Raipur and Jagdalpur is in Bastar region, and Raipur is in the north, far north of Chattisgarh. So from Raipur to enter Bastar is a good 6-7 hours by bus. And ironically, bus is actually the quicker route here to enter Bastar than train. The train would actually take a longer route. It would go round and almost take around 12 to 14 hours to reach Bastar from Raipur. However, the bus just cuts through the forest, I guess, or something. But it's like 6-7 hours. So the convenient way is by road actually to reach Bastar from Raipur, and rail from Andhra or something if you're coming from down south.
Okay, interesting. And in terms of the time to travel, right, what is an ideal time or like even range of when one can travel to Bastar?
You mean to say the best time?
Yeah, what time of the
best
year?
Time to visit.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chhattisgarh has a tropical weather. It's like very, very hot, much like the other parts of India except the north. The summers are very hot, extremely harsh. The weathers can go up to 49 degrees Celsius. The winters are pleasant. The forest area in the winters is particularly nice and cold. And of course it has monsoons also. So basically 3 seasons, just like any other, most of the states in India. The best time to visit, I'd say, is any time except the summers, because summers are very, very hot. Monsoons, you'll get amazing waterfalls, and the forests are lush and green, so it's a different sight. Likewise, the winters will give you a different view of the city totally. The best time in terms of culture would be when the Madais happen. So Madais are basically the fairs, these local fairs that happen. And because Chhattisgarh has a rich tribal culture, and agriculture and farming is like the biggest occupation over there, so a lot of their festivals revolve around the harvest season. So January, April, I would say 4 months is the best time to go if you want to have get a taste of these local fairs, the tribal fairs, which you definitely must, because that is, I think, one of the best things about Chhattisgarh, the tribal culture. So if you're there, you might as well check a tribal fair, which is like a different world altogether.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's some good bit of context setting in terms of how one can get to Bastar and also when is a good time to get to Bastar. And also, if I may take the liberty and add a little bit in terms of the historical significance, right? Like Edwina mentioned as well, that Chhattisgarh was actually carved out of Madhya Pradesh in around the year 2000. But even historically, I don't know how many of you remember this, but the Dandakaranya forest, right, that one might have listened to in Ramayana or seen in Ramayana, where Lord Ram and Sita and Lakshman are exiled from Ayodhya and they spend, 13, 14 years out there. That's like geographically where Bastar is. So it's believed that the forests of Bastar are the Dandakaranya forests that are that find a mention in the Ramayana. So that way also it's very, very significant. And also I believe the Kosala kingdom of Mahabharata is also related to this place. So just trying to give you a view of kind of historical and religious significance of the place as well. And it's believed that it was the place itself, right? Bastar, the district or the state of Bastar, it was founded in the 14th century by one of the Kakatiya kings. These are the kings from down south, based out of Warangal in modern day Telangana. Historically, it has been a very, very significant place, and like we mentioned at the beginning as well, it's just that the threat of the naxalism and concerns over safety is why this has kind of been kept away from the eyes of rest of India. I would say that it hasn't picked up quite as a touristy place, right? Or a place, even given its rich culture and heritage and the rich tribal tradition they have there, it hasn't quite picked up. And they are very, very eager to go and find out a little bit more about this. Why don't you take us with you on this trip, right from, say, setting off from Raipur, and take us through this itinerary of 5 days that you spent in Bastar. We're looking forward to it.
Sure. So the moment I arrived in Raipur, the first day was just spent getting the pulse of the city in Raipur. The next day, so I was traveling with Unexplored Bastar, Jeet from Unexplored Bastar, who heads this tour agency. And Jeet and I boarded the bus from Raipur, and we began our journey inside the interiors. The first stop was this place called Dhamteri in the bus. So that was about like 3.5, 4 hours from Raipur to Dhamteri. We got off, and then from there we moved on in a car to check out this place in Dhamteri, and Jeet had some work with the collector, so it was pretty cool. I got to interact with the collector as well. Dhamteri is famous because of the Gangrel Dam, which is the biggest source of water, and it also provides electricity not only to Chattisgarh but most part of India as well. So it's this huge dam in Chattisgarh, Gangrel Dam. And also Dhamteri is known as mini Goa. So I was surprised too, but when I went there, so basically Chhattisgarh is a landlocked state, but because of Gangrel Dam and this huge water body, and Chhattisgarh is blessed with rivers. So there's this whole beach-like atmosphere they've created with sand, and there are lots of stalls and corn and water sports and stuff. So it's like the mini Goa of Chhattisgarh, you can say, Dhamteri. I spent some time there and checking out the place and stuff. Unfortunately, it was raining, so we couldn't really go on any of the water sports. The best time is post monsoons, right until the summers. And it's a nice place. It's like a picnic spot for a lot of people, especially weekenders, because it's quite close by from Raipur as well. It's hardly like 3 hours or something. So a lot of people, especially the weekenders, go on there. And there's a very big resort also over there, so you can spend some nights in the tent and just chill and stuff.
Okay, interesting. And this was so you were there for like half of the day, or how much time did you spend there?
This was half day. The moment we got off from the bus, we went to Dhamteri, we checked out this place and stuff. From there, we moved towards this small village called Jabbara. Now, it's interesting. Jabbara was a very interesting place for me because the tribals, it's a very, very small village, hardly a couple of houses over there. But, the people over there have taken it upon themselves to take care of the forest, and they are doing tourism And they've built the homestays and they are inviting tourists to come stay with them and stuff. So that was something very interesting about Japara for me. We got to interact with the tribals, and I was staying in this lovely, there are homestay options, but I was staying in this koti, a koti. It was a British koti in 1927. So back in its day, during the pre-British rule, there was a lot of timber that was transported from this village, Japara, and this timber was used for making railway tracks.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So a lot of timber from this place was taken to other parts. The British took them to other parts for making railway tracks and stuff. Apart from that, they are blessed with sal trees, and which is also the state tree of Chattisgarh. So they are very, very rich on resources. And stuff. So Jabara was an amazing place. Jeet and his team do have an initiative in Jabara called Jabara Healers. So basically, if someone's looking for wellness and stuff, you can go over there, interact with the tribals. They have local medicinal, if you want any medicinal properties like leaves or something, how these tribals do,
Right.
you get all of that over there. And there's no network, so basically you're totally cut off from connectivity living in this place. If you want to stay with the locals, if you want to stay in the koti, you can go. There's a hiking trail over there, so there are bears in Jabara. So so there's this whole bear hiking trail if you want to do and stuff also. So Jabara was pretty interesting. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So just you and the sights and sounds of the forest around you, right?
Yes.
That's great. So I'm assuming you spent the night here. Was this your first? Do you end the first day here?
Yes. So the first night we spent after entering Bastar, the first night we spent was in Jabara, and we interacted with the tribals over there. So Jabara has tribals like Gond and Pega people. So these are some of the tribals that live there, and we had our meals, lunches and dinner was at their place only in the tribal homes and stuff.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. I really have to get to some of your food stories, but we'll save that for a little later when we have some interesting ones coming up. But from here, did you head off to Bastar the following day? And in terms of your itinerary, what was the plan? Did you plan on spending a big chunk of your itinerary at a certain place, or was it like stopping over at different points like you just started?
To be honest, Saif, when I chose Chhattisgarh, I just came with an open mind. I really didn't have any research material on the internet. No one was really talking about Chhattisgarh, from the tourism aspect. So my idea of traveling to Chhattisgarh was just discovering. There was nothing like I was going to see or I had to see कि नहीं ये तो देखना ही है. Yeah, and then the next day the actual tour started. I mean hardcore. I had this guy called Sonse, who's part of Jeet's team, this young tour guide. He's a local tribe also, Dhurwa tribe. He comes from the Dhurwa tribe. And Sonse was really amazing. And then Sonse and I went sightseeing on a bike. So it was because it was just Sonse and me, just two people. Sonse got his bike out and I was sitting as a pillion, and we went sightseeing inside the interiors of Bastar. Passing through forests, deep in the jungles and stuff. This was day 3.
Right.
So the first stop on day 3 was we went to Kailash Caves. Now Kailash Caves again is like these 1,000-year-old caves that are there in deep in the jungles that were once used for meditation by the saints and stuff. And now it's become this whole religious, there are some religious deities inside. So Mahashivratri is one of the biggest festivals over there. So during Mahashivratri, it's like this whole fair, and there are lots of people who are, out there to pray and then get together and stuff. But other than that, it's a tourist place. People can visit this, visitors can go and check it out. It was a very, it was different, this experience, because entering the caves, it was pitch dark. We just had to take our torches and go. And we went quite deep. I don't know, maybe some 100 feet or something. We just went down and down and down, and there were lots of bats. And off late, I'm very, very scared of bats. So So yeah, I mean there were bats, and it was like really deep, and it got cooler, but
Yeah,
also I mean it was and right at the bottom there was this whole DT, but only when you put the torch you could see the DT, and there were coins and
right.
money and stuff, and there was this place which was like an open hall. So I'm guessing back then it was also used as a secret place to discuss strategies. I don't know, maybe something like that. But it was a huge hall where we sat for a good 5-10 minutes, basically just by ourselves in the dark.
Yeah, underground caves, right? Basically, that's what this is. It also has like Bastar also has these other sort of famous caves, right? Kutumsar caves. Do you get a chance to
Yes,
go there
yes.
as well?
So they are same actually. Kutumsar, Kailash, they pretty much similar ancient caves and stuff. But I didn't check
Right.
Kutumsar because I had checked Kailash caves.
Right. Yeah, Kailash, apparently, like you mentioned also, right, it's about 150 feet deep and about 1,000 feet long is what I believe. I just have to confirm the source of that. But yeah, the name, apparently why it's called Kailash is a lot of these stalactites and stalagmites, right? They appear
Yes,
like shivlings.
yes.
And that's how the name. That's at least how what the legend says. But yeah, interesting place. We kind of remind me of an episode we did not too long ago about these underground caves in Meghalaya. Those are obviously much longer and deeper.
Yes.
But yeah, like these caves, they have like an ecosystem of themselves, right? The Kutumsar one also, I believe those are kind of much longer compared to the Kailash ones, but they seem to have special kind of a fish, like a fish that is genetically blind because the caves are so deep and so dark that these fish are never exposed to any sort of light. So genetically, they've gone blind over the years. I think our first taste of kind of the nature related places in Chattisgarh, right? It's kind of plush with nature, and Kutumsar and Kailash caves are like specimen A of that, right? So from here, where do you head off to next?
So from here, I went next to this to Tiradgar waterfalls.
Okay.
Again, it's a very, very popular waterfall in the Bastar region of Chattisgarh. Obviously, Chitrakoot gets most of the attention, but Tiradgar is equally beautiful. I would say so. Chitrakoot is like more brute. The force of the water is really, really
Yep.
harsh, but Tiradgar is more graceful. And Tiradgar is also actually sort of like a religious place. There are
Okay.
a lot of smaller temples over there. So Chitrakoot is out and out a tourist attraction, but Tiradgar you will find a lot of people who go there to visit the temples and might as well check the falls also, sort of a thing.
Okay. Yeah, like to your point, right? These are much more graceful and almost like a cascading waterfall, right? Tiradgar.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's also referred to as the Milky Waterfalls because it's that beautiful and that literally mist that it throws up. Whereas compare that to Chitrakoot, the other famous waterfall in this one, right? It's also referred to as the Niagara
The
of India.
Niagara. True.
Right, because it
True.
has that horseshoe kind of shape, and it's pretty wide. Like I was looking up, and it's about 300 meters wide and about 30 odd meters high. And yeah, in monsoons, it's literally that brute force, right?
Yes.
It's the rush that you see. Really nice, and yeah, some places that you perhaps won't miss when you're in Bastar and in Chhattisgarh, right? So some of the places that stand out. But yeah, I won't interject more. Go on with Tiradgar, right? That's where you
Yeah.
upped off to next, yeah?
So I reached at the fag end of the. So basically it was Tiradgar Mela that was also going on. Like I said, since I was in February, it was the time of the festivals and stuff. So there was a Tiradgar Mela that was going on, but I reached towards the end of it. So it was almost over. But I could still see stalls and stuff, and we had made a stop there for our lunch as well. From Tiradgar, then we moved towards a market called Tokapal Haat.
Okay.
So basically, if you are going to Bastar and you're visiting Chhattisgarh, if you are in Chhattisgarh, you should actually make it a point to check out at least one weekly market. Now, weekly market or hart as they are called. Basically, in Chattisgarh, most of the tribals, for them, the hart becomes a place of gathering. So not only are they going to buy their weekly stuff, like salt or whatever their groceries are, but a lot of people who grow their farm produce, they also go there to sell their produce. So it's like a two-way thing. No, you're not only buying, you're going there to sell. So there are so many farmers that when I went to Tokapal Hut was selling kosha silk, the cocoons for kosha silk. There were people who grow tamarind and they went there to sell their tamarind. Likewise, there were people who were buying stuff like salt, vegetables and stuff. So the hart, the Tokapal Hart or a marketplace is like the most happening place for the tribals, because obviously they don't have any other form of
Socializing
entertainment.
and stuff, right?
Yes, true. There's no socializing, there's no form of entertainment for them. So the weekly heart is what they are most excited about, I would say. They're most looking forward to, because that's where they socially meet, they gather, they buy their stuff, they interact. So it's just not about vegetables and fruits. It's also a place where you will find, like in modern day we have malls where you have your shops, plus you have your food courts, plus you have your entertainment zones. In the same way, the hearts here, they have their place where they buy and sell food. They have their own place where you can buy meats. So the poultry section is separate. Then if they want to eat their food like snacks and all, there is a separate section for that. There is an alcohol section. They have their own local alcohol, which is all desi, none of the stuff we have here. So all their local alcohol like sulfi and mahua, there's a section for that. There's a section to buy grains. There's a section for their entertainment like the cockfighting and stuff. So all of that happens at the heart. So that is why the tribals are the most excited, and they're always looking forward to this weekly gathering, I would say. And it's like a big thing for them. You will find people coming in big jeeps. Each jeep has not only their produce, but it's stuffed with people, like 8 people sitting in one jeep. They're all, it's like a very coordinated thing.
Yeah, and it's quite the thing, right? The hearts are quite the thing in Bastar and Chattisgarh in general, and Tokapal is probably one of them, right? So from here, from the Tokapal, right? Tokapal hut was this one. Where do you head off next?
So on the same day, I also grabbed the opportunity to check out a cockfighting session on this day. Yeah, so it's although it's a banned sport, but I think it prevails in Chattisgarh. It's a cultural thing for them.
Yep.
And again, it's like a heart. You'll find a cockfighting session happening almost every day in some corner of the Bastar region. It's a very weird feeling sort of thing, because there are lots of cocks that are fighting, and mostly these fights are fight to death. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, you can always kind of debate about the ethical aspect of this, right?
Absolutely.
But again, it goes back to this is something that has been going on for centuries, right? If not longer, and comes back to these debates we have about Jallikattu and things like that. I think it's a fine line. Like a lot of times, for some people, it's a part of their tradition, and for the others, it's cruelty of animals, which is also true, right? Both sides have their points.
I think it's debatable, because what happens is, then you check out the poultry industry, the way the chickens are treated and stuff. Besides, a very interesting thing about the cocks, basically, that fight is, until the time of the fight, the cocks are treated almost like they are babies. They are like pampered and stuff, because they have to be given the best of food. They have to make sure that they are healthy, so that they can go and fight. So most of the cocks are treated with a lot of care, versus poultry who are kept in cages. And if it's about the treatment, so until the fight happens, most of the cocks are treated like one of their family members itself.
Right.
So I don't know, it's a very fine line. I just went there from a tourist point of view. It's a cultural thing, and I'm a culture person. I just went to check it out, that's it.
Yeah, and from here, like is it almost like inching towards the close of the day?
Yeah, from there I did stop to take my bags from Jeet's place, and then I went towards the bus stand. I had a journey to undertake from Jagdalpur, and my next stop was going to be Muchnar, this place called Muchnar,
Okay.
or Barsur. Barsur is the more popular city. So the next day I was attending a fair, but to save time, I reached the place of the fair the same night itself.
Okay. And like, what was the plan for the following day?
So the next day was the most important day of the entire trip. I had planned to visit Bastar for many reasons, but one of the most important reasons was the fair, the madai. As I had said,
Right.
Bastar is known for its many madais, and I was there to check out this this fair called the Ghodpal Madai. So before I actually begin on this, it's a very interesting trivia maybe to share with the people who are listening.
Sure.
The fairs that happen in Chattisgarh, most of them, so there are no fixed dates for the festival. Okay, the leader of the village will come, the communities will come together and decide on a certain date that they have to do the festival. That's how it happens. So in a way, it's difficult to even plan a trip if you're going for the festivals. So that is why it's important that you have to be in touch with someone locally who can give you these dates.
Right.
And on the day of the festival, we reached at around 9:30, 10ish in the morning, and it wasn't set up till now. I mean, villagers were still coming in, and they are, jeeps stuffed with people. Almost 8-10 people used to be in one jeep, but they were still coming in. And 12 o'clock onwards, it just peaked. I mean, suddenly the whole atmosphere changed. It was crowded, and people were praying and shouting, and there was this music that was going on, tribal music, and each villager will get their own devi. It's a wooden chariot sort of a thing.
Okay.
And basically all the villagers are coming with their own devis, and it's like a get together for all the devis sort of a thing.
Okay, these are the local goddesses, you mean,
Yes,
right?
the local goddesses. Usendi is the main, but all small villages will get their own goddesses also. And then the whole procedure started for their prayers and stuff. I recollect one of the rituals was to take all the devis, carry them and take them to the nearby river, and wash the devi plus them. So basically the people who are carrying it.
Right.
And the simplest logic to my mind is to say that when guests come, we always make sure that we wash our feet. I mean, sort of a thing.
Right.
So that is in the same way it was done for the gods as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. And another very, very weird sight, I haven't really seen this anywhere I've been to, the festival. The people over there, it's like Devi comes on them. There are these certain people, obviously the atmosphere is such, some of them are really high on alcohol, but some of them are really possessed as well. And I saw that, and it was very raw. I've never really seen a festival like this, because it was a very, very raw festival that civilizations that's been going on for ages, and it hasn't been really corrupted through these modern times in any way. And then I saw bird sacrifice happening, which again it was a very weird sight, but you just watch it from the spectator point of view.
Yeah, a lot of these things I think are prevalent in their local cultures. I'm sure this happens in some of the smaller villages also. It's just that as city dwellers, right, a lot of us are shielded, and we're not quite exposed to it as much, right? But I guess this has been going on for a while as a part of their traditions, right?
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. What else can one expect at these fairs or madais, right? That's what they're called.
Yes.
Yeah.
So apart from that, there's dance that happens. A lot of villagers that come here, they are singing, dancing. For a lot of people, it becomes like a community marriage sort of a thing. I mean, there are a lot of tribals who cannot afford to get married independently because of the money involved. So then they all come together during the fair. I think it's called Samuhik Vivaha, if I'm not wrong. So, then there are food stalls also. They have their it's called some urad dal snack. It's called bada.
Okay.
And then you have your sulfi, which is like the beer of Chattisgarh.
Yeah, not your selfie, right? Selfie.
Sulfi, yes, sulfi. It's called sulfi, the beer of Chattisgarh. And
Did the seller sing to you "Lele re, selfie lele re" or "Selfie lele re"? No. I'm sorry, I had to past that crude joke the moment I saw that. But yeah, it's a very popular local beer, right, of the region, along with a couple
So a
others.
lot of people call it the beer of Chattisgarh or Bastar for that matter. So Sulfi actually is non-alcoholic. Although it's called the beer of Chattisgarh, it's non-alcoholic. It's surprising, and you'll find Sulfi everywhere. Okay, even on highways there are people selling Sulfis, and it's cheap to even gather Sulfi. It's just this tree. A palm tree sort of a thing, and you just chip the bark of that tree, and then from that sap, the drop by drop, you just put a clay pot underneath that tree, and then keep that pot there for 24 hours to 48 hours, overnight probably, and it just fills, that pot fills drop by drop, and the next day it's just ready for consumption. And it's pretty cheap, you can get that for 10 rupees, you can have a glass of Sulfi. Everything was cheap there, to be honest. Even at the heart where I was having food there for 10 rupees, 20 rupees. I'm sorry I didn't add, but there were a lot of people at the heart who were selling red ants, the gucha. Yeah, the red ant chutney. There were people who were selling red ant chutney and stuff also over there. So
yeah, this is the first time, on previous episodes covering places in the northeast, like Nagaland, we obviously covered markets that had that were selling insects and all of that, right? But yeah, red ants came as a surprise to me as well. But do you want to describe how they taste?
So basically, red ants. Firstly, I have to it's pretty commendable how the tribals, the locals, go and catch these. You have to really climb the tree, and they don't have any gear or nothing. So when they are just taking the whole basket or the whole bunch of red ants, the whole eggs, while they are taking that down, they don't have any protective gear, and it's really dangerous. Because I remember where I was staying in Muchnar at my homestay, the gentleman, one of the homestay owner, he actually climbed the tree to get those, to prepare red ant chutney. So he literally went on the tree to get that whole bunch of red ants. And while I was there, just standing close to it, red ants were quick enough to come on me. So imagine the guy who went to get the whole bunch down. So it's really dangerous. Right. So I tried the raw egg as well. The ants and the eggs, which are white, the larvae sort of a thing. They're very rich in formic acid. So So it's got, it's actually, from the medicinal point of view also, people consider it healthy, and I think that's why it's consumed. And how do you eat it? Basically, you grind it with, you grind the ants, and you put some chilies, some lime, and it's had as a chutney, which is locally called chapra.
Yeah, very, very kind of unique to the place, right? This is the first time I came across, at least in India, that I came across red ant chutney. And a little more trivia about that is that Gordon Ramsay, the famous chef, so while he was on his tour around India, and he was really fascinated by this, and this chapra, like you said, right, the red ant chutney is now being offered at his restaurants as one of the items on the menu.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I think you bring up a good point also, because if people have watched this movie Newton, right, it's the Hindi movie, it is also based in Chhattisgarh, starring Rajkumar Rao, and I think they mention in that as well that because it has a lot of medicinal properties, like tribals consider it as, I think even, what was it, against, not a cure, but a prevention against malaria as well, given that it's very acidic and all of that. So, very interesting that it has a lot of scientific connection as well, right? It's not just purely ritual or cultural based and stuff like that. So,
True.
So yeah, moving on from the welcome diversion of red ant chutney, where do you head off to from here, the Madai that you were at?
So day 2, we quickly did a stop back to the fair to just see how was the festival and if there was any noise or anything happening. But by then things had calmed down, so we went back inside the city. I was on my way back to Jagdalpur. On the way, I made a stop at this place called Jamawada.
Okay.
Jamawada is another small village inside the Bastar region. My guide, who on day 2. On day 3, Sonse Nag, who had taken me around Kailash caves and stuff, he hails from Jamawada. So there we interacted with Sonse's family. We met a couple of more locals. we went to their houses. We saw, tamarind is a huge crop for the Bastar region of Chattisgarh. So we saw some people who were drying their tamarind, and also from Jamawada, which was like quick. We had spent hardly 2-3 hours over there, and then we went to a workshop for Dokra art.
Okay, interesting.
Now, Dokra art is a very important art and craft for the people of Chattisgarh, mainly the Bastar region. So basically, it's like these thin, how do you say, the thin...
Yeah, figurines made of bronze mostly, right?
Yes.
And they usually depict what, tribal forms and people and stuff like that? Or is this like different things?
Originally, it was about, depicting the people and what their tribal forms were. But these days, you get a lot of common stuff also. Like turtles are one of the most important figurine as well. For me, the learning factor in Dokra art was the whole importance of wax. So basically, he makes the figurine and then is coated with wax, and then it is heated.
Right.
Okay, I'm just making the long story short, but then that wax is heated, and then afterwards, when you break the wax, the mold, the metal inside has taken the shape of the wax, which is the turtle or whatever the art form, the art thing is. But yeah, that was a very interesting thing for me to see the entire process.
Yeah, and apparently centuries old, right? It's been being passed down from centuries, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, and the workshop I saw, the gentleman had passed on this tradition to his son. So, in fact, I saw the entire family that was participating in creating this art and this craft basically, and then they also sold it. So yeah, I grabbed the opportunity to buy one locally from them. Yeah, so that was pretty much the next day, and from there we moved towards Chitrakoot, where we spent the night. So we drove directly to Chitrakoot and we spent the night over there. I also then checked in, and then because I wanted to see the Chitrakoot falls at night, we quickly went down to the falls at around 8:39ish to check out the falls over there.
In terms of your living arrangements, right, were these all managed by the tour agency, Unexplored Bastar? I'm sorry.
Yes. It was entirely managed by them. I just told them I'll be coming in for XX number of days, and the entire, whatever the itinerary was and where would I stay and stuff, it was managed by them.
Okay, that's great. I think it comes in very handy, especially in places like these that are not, super touristy, right? For the lack of a better word, because other places even if you don't plan, you'll just go find something. But these places, you actually have to know where you'll be spending that night. It's not that you can just drive a few kilometers or walk a few minutes and then find another place. So I think it's best to plan it out with a local tour agency. That's the important bit.
Yes.
So having spent some time at the Chitrakoot Falls, this is obviously the same falls, the Niagara of India that we spoke about a little earlier.
Yes.
Did you head off? Where did you head off to the next day?
So the next day was at Chitrakoot itself. So where we reached in the night. So I just saw it at night, but then you also make sure you see it by the day, because that's where you'll get the whole glorious view of the falls. So the next morning we went back to the falls. Now thankfully it was around February when I went. It was in February, so boating is possible. During the monsoons you can't go boating, so you can only see it from far. But in February or non-monsoon period, you can actually go boating and experience the falls up close. And when I say up close, I really mean like up close. The boat takes you quite close to the falls, and you can actually, you're completely drenched while you are in that boat. And it was a very, very exhilarating feeling to see the falls so up close. The whole sound of the force of the falls, it's something.
Absolutely. And also one thing that kind of really fascinated me, right? How different the falls appears like post-monsoon. It's like really muddy, and color is different, and obviously the brute force that we're speaking of, versus like around Feb, I guess, where it's a little more, calm might not be the right word, but relatively calmer and also whiter, right? How it
Yes.
appears in its appearance. So that was also really fascinating to watch. And any other things to kind of check out while you're in Chitrakoot?
No, actually, so Chitrakoot was just about the waterfalls. So after Chitrakoot Falls, I went back to Jagdalpur. That was the end, almost the end of the Bastar trip. Before that, I stopped at the Anthropology Museum in Jagdalpur. So obviously, because Chhattisgarh has a rich tribal culture, there's a museum there if you want to understand about their life and the indigenous tribes and stuff. There's a very interesting section there called the Ghotul. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but Ghotul is basically this really advanced practice where, two people or a community of young boys and girls stay together away from their family, and that place, Ghotul, becomes a place for them for knowledge sharing and lots of things, a workshop for dance, learning, reading, knowledge sharing, sexual, even if you want to check your the sexual intimacy much before marriage. So Ghotul is like that place for the tribals.
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
It was very, very interesting. So obviously the practice is still on, but it's way in the interiors, and it's very difficult to catch hold of catch a glimpse of a Ghotul. But if you go to the museums or if you read up online, you will get a lot of information about the Ghotul. And it's much more. So a lot of people sadly just assume Ghotul to be this place where you can have, it's a place for premarital sex and stuff, but it's much more beyond that. It's a place where these young boys and girls sit together, and there's a lot of knowledge sharing happening, and there's a lot of exchanges happening, and part of that is also checking if you are compatible physically.
Right.
Yeah,
but
very
it's interesting and quite progressive also, I would say.
very progressive. Absolutely.
It's interesting. And while we're at the travel museum, right, I think we've been kind of touching upon this throughout the journey, but would you also like to call out upon some of these like very rich and very prominent tribes, because that forms a very, very important part of the journey of the experience visiting Chhattisgarh and Bastar, right? These different tribals and tribal communities that are there. Do you want to touch upon those?
So there are many tribes actually. A definite number can't be put on this one, but some of the famous ones are popular. Some ones that come to my mind actually would be the Durva tribe. There's a Bega tribe. There are Korvas, I think, or Korbas, I don't know if I'm getting the name right, but it's Korvas, I think. And Gonds. Gond people, the Gond tribe is one of the oldest tribes, not just in Chhattisgarh, but much before Chhattisgarh was formed, and much before India and the subcontinent was formed. So, of what I've read, and another piece of trivia, the Gond tribe comes from this place called Gondwana. Gond tribes are very, very old, and they've been there for a long time.
And Gondi is probably the language, right?
Yes.
Right. And a few others that I looked up was Abuj Maria. Is that the name?
There are Abuj Marias as well.
Right. Drola, Halba, Gadba, and an interesting name that I found was Bison Horn Maria, right? Apparently that's a tribe as well. So very interesting, and all of a lot of them, they have very interesting kind of their clothing, to their headgears, to their tattoos and all that, right? Very, very kind of interesting to look at all of those aspects of these different tribes that are there.
True. One of them have, they have this mask with the bison horns, and they have the corn shells which they put on those masks and stuff also. Yeah, so it's like a very tribal. It's very local to them.
Yeah, apparently back in the day, they actually used to hunt down bisons and use the horns of them, but as time has progressed, they kind of demoted themselves to I think the usual cattle horn, cows or bulls or whatever, I don't know that was, and then slowly they moved on to shells and stuff like that. So interesting about that. Another important thing, Bastar Dasera, right? That's also very kind of a core event that you can plan your itinerary around, right? Edwina, perhaps you didn't get a chance to do that, but that's also a very popular thing, right?
Absolutely, sir. It's literally making a choice. Perhaps if I ever go back to Bastar, it would be to check out the Bastar Dasera. It is the most important and most fun thing about, if you want, if from a traveler perspective, from the cultural perspective.
Yeah.
Unlike your usual Daseras that happen, this is a long affair. It's like almost a 75-day Dasera, Bastar
Yeah.
Dasera that happens. And it's like a long procession through Jagdalpur, and the entire villages around gather. And it's huge, and it's like literally difficult, to see the whole thing in one go. You maybe need to go there multiple times to check out the entire festival, but it's one of the most popular festivals, not just in Bastar but across India, Bastar Dasera. And a
Yeah,
lot of
absolutely.
people, not just domestic tourists, I have seen a lot of, like Jeet told me, there are a lot of international tourists that come specially for the Bastar Dasera.
Sure. Yeah. And it's 75 days. Apparently, this is the longest festival in the world, not
Yes.
just in India. So that's very interesting. And the other kind of very quirky thing about this I found is that it doesn't have any relation to the Dasera we do over here, right? Which is related to the Ramayana and stuff like that. This is more focused on the various tribes that are there, their deities, their goddesses, and they kind of, the similarity perhaps, at least the Mysore Dasera, if you compare that, is that it all kicks off at the king's place, right? Here, apparently, it's the Bastar Palace where
Yes,
all of
the
this
Bastar
takes
Palace
off.
is the main place, the main hub for the entire festival, which I also checked out on my last day. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So it takes off there, but yeah, it's very much focused on a procession, focusing on the tribes and their deities, their goddesses. So a lot of dancing, a lot of chariots that they make out of the local sal and all of that. So they have a lot of traditions and customs. So a very
And the
yeah.
Rath is also like there. So, like when I went in Feb, I could see that the Rath was out there, totally covered. But yeah,
Yeah, so very interesting thing, and like Edwina mentioned as well, it'll be a great way for you to kind of get the energy and the whole place in a microcosm, right? Those obviously 75 days might not be a possibility, but if you want to check it out, perhaps sometime during the Dasera, it happens from July through the following 2.5 months, August, September, whatever, right? So that's when it happens. Another good time, right? Apart from the monsoons or the winters, this might be a good time if you want to go and visit as well. And a couple of interesting food choices also that I saw there, Edwina, about this black chicken. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
yes. So it's called Kadaknath. The black chicken is called Kadaknath. It's very, very rich in iron. It's called black chicken because the blood, when you cut the chicken, the blood is also black.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where the whole iron content comes in from. But on the flip side, Kadaknath is very rubbery. I mean, it's very difficult to cook. It's
Okay.
unlike your normal chicken, which has a lot of fats and it's easy to cook. Kadaknath is more tough. The meat is more tough, but it's local to the Chattisgarh and MP region. So yeah, I did get a chance to try Kadaknath while I was in the Mujnar region.
Yeah, it's. Even beyond the high iron content that you're speaking of, right? Apparently, even these birds, right? The chicken, basically, they have a very. They're either black or gray. Basically, they're not
Yes.
your usual chicken, the white poultry chicken or farm chicken that you find, right? They're not typical to that. They're like literally black or gray. So appeared very weird, and the rubberiness or the kind of texture that you're referring to perhaps might be because of the reason that fat content wise also under 1% fat is what these chicken have, and compare that to about 13 to 25% that the usual poultry chicken that we consume have, right? So that way it's very different and perhaps a little more healthy also. I don't know, but appetizing or not, I can't really say.
Well, so it's equally, it depends on how they cook it. So it's like the masalas and all is totally same. The desi chicken, the way they cook it. But here I'd like to add, you get your normal chickens, you get the Kadaknaths, and because of Kadaknath's popularity, There people have now started to sell it as a hybrid. So there's a hybrid Kadaknath as well that comes.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Like I said, right? A lot of these things you don't even hear. I mean, otherwise, other places, perhaps you have people like travelers, bloggers, etc., sharing a lot of these experiences. But given that Bastar is so like unexplored, for lack of a better word, a lot of these things you just hear through conversations like these.
True.
So yeah, anything else on your journey that you'd like to share at this point, as we are inching closer to the end of the episode, Edwina?
Yeah. So two things that I didn't really speak about, and which I did see along the way. One was the pillars, tribal pillars.
Okay.
A couple of places you will find these tribal pillars. What these pillars really mean is that a particular tribe, a tribal, he will put down his entire story, his entire life painted on a pillar.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and you'll find these, they're pretty common and easy to spot across the Bastar region. And the pillars will indicate right from the beginning his learnings, his whatever he has learned, whatever his occupation is, his family, his sexual practices, everything, literally everything is put down on those pillars. So this is one thing you can spot over there. And the other is tribal graves. I also found so many tribal graves, and the interesting thing about these tribal graves is on each grave there are these dioramas, these small statues made of clay, and those clay statues depict what this tribal did. Again, his occupation, or which tribal is he? Is he a Bega or is he a Gond tribe? So all of these would be on those tribal graves to tell you ki this was the person, this is what he did, sort of a thing. So these are two more interesting sites which I haven't seen anywhere, and I wouldn't have known had if I was doing this all by myself. So thankfully there was a local who could show me and tell me what is the significance of all of this.
Yeah, like I said, there's new things, like literally half the things we've discussed are probably things you're hearing or seeing for the very first time, right? So that way it's really, really interesting. And thank you so much for taking us on this wonderful and really enlightening journey of sorts. And I don't know, like, it just reminds me from a line from one of our previous episodes, right? There's so many Indias within India, right? So places just a few 100 kilometers away from here are so different. So thank you for showing us those sights and sounds and views.
Thanks, Seth. I mean, I enjoyed talking. It was like reliving the trip. So yeah, thanks.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Savan, Pocket Casts, Castbox, Stitcher, or any other podcasting app available on iOS or Android. Please do leave us a review on iTunes. It goes a long way in the show's discoverability. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com or visit our website at www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of each episode. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.